Hi, this is Simon Candy from AcousticGuitarLessonsOnline.net and welcome to part 2 of a video series I've created on soloing using arpeggios on guitar. This is actually more of a continuation of the first video rather than a separate part all of its own. When editing the first video, it ended up being quite long, so I thought it would be better to create 2 videos out of it, allowing you to digest the information a little bit better. If you are yet to see the first part of this video series, then click the link in the top right corner of this video to watch part 1. Otherwise, you're not going to understand what we're about to do. That said, in this video, we will continue with the strategy of following the chord change with our arpeggio shapes, whilst maintaining a steady tempo throughout, only this time with an 8th note fill, making it more challenging. I will also walk you through other combinations of arpeggios and how they relate to each other on the fretboard via the 2-5-1 chord progression, further developing your ability to actually use arpeggios in your guitar playing. What we are doing in this video is one of the best exercises I've ever come across in my 31 years of playing guitar to date. It is super effective in allowing you to actually use arpeggios for soloing on guitar. So let's pick up from where we left off with how to solo using arpeggios on your guitar. Okay, so the other thing here that I just want to add to this particular exercise first before we quickly look at the other chord combinations, because remember we're talking about a 2-5-1 progression here, not just the 2 and the 5 chord. But what you can do is you don't always have to be ascending or descending when you're in the arpeggio shape. You can change midway, okay? So what I mean is I could be going up my D minor arpeggio, and for the 4th note I might come back down rather than continue up, and it puts me on a different note than I would otherwise be when connecting into G, dominant 7th. I might go up 3 and down 1, and then into the minor, D minor, and then back to the G7, right? So you don't always have to be ascending or just descending when you're on the arpeggio. You can be up a couple of notes, down a couple of notes, any which way. You just want to try and exhaust all possible combinations. The other thing, and it becomes a little more relevant here in this particular context, what I just said, is you don't have to just play quarter notes. What you could do is play 8th notes. That's going to be a little more challenging because it's going to be a little bit quicker because you're going to be playing 2 notes to the beat. You're going to be playing more notes in each arpeggio before you change. Okay, so otherwise everything's exactly the same as what we've done so far in terms of changing to the next available note above or below the one you're on. So if I'm playing 8th notes in each arpeggio, then it's going to sound like this. For the D minor, I'm going to be going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then it's time to change to G. 7, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and back to the D minor. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and G, and 2 and 3 and 4, and then it's back to the D minor. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and G, and 2 and 3 and 4 and D minor, and the G, etc. Okay, so what I was doing then was playing 8th notes, more notes, but I was only going up or down any particular time I was on an arpeggio. But as I was just saying before and demonstrated before, you can change direction at any point while you're on the arpeggio in terms of ascending and descending. So if I'm playing D minor 7th with 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and so I sort of went up and down and back up, whatever, as long as I exhaust the whole bar with 8th notes before switching to the G 7th chord. So 2 and 3 and 4 to G, and D minor, and G. Okay, you get the idea. I can go back and forth between notes as long as I change at the right point and as long as I keep the consistent rhythm. So again, if we're on D minor, G, up or down, D minor, G, D minor, D minor, okay, I did it a little bit there and I sort of went into a quarter note rhythm for a moment. But you get the idea, okay? We can change direction at any point. You don't have to wait until you get to the new arpeggio to change direction. Okay, so that's the approach, and we were doing it with the D minor 7 and the G7, but of course we also have the G7 going to the C major 7 in our 2-5-1 chord progression. So you would next deal with those two arpeggios and how they relate to each other in the same way, using the same strategies and methods we did with D minor 7 and G7. So that would be a matter of plotting out on your fretboard paper, just like the diagram you're seeing on your screen now. What I've got there is the G7 arpeggio and the C major 7 arpeggio, and how they both relate to each other. And again, notice that between these two arpeggios, there are also two notes that belong to both arpeggios. We've got the G, that's part of a G, of course, 7 arpeggio, and a C, and the B is part of both. So again, useful to know those connecting points and then how all the other notes relate to each other. And then you could spend a bar on each, connecting from one to the next. So G7, C, G7, C, G7, C. Okay, exactly the same thing, only now dealing with the G7 and the C major 7 change. And then of course, if you're going to be repeating this chord progression, D minor, G7, C major, and then going back to D minor, G7, C major, then you're also going to be dealing with the change of C major going back into the D minor. So you could do the same thing. So the diagram you now see on your screen is the C major 7 arpeggio overlaid with the D minor 7 arpeggio. Okay, and you can see that there are no common notes. No, there's a C. I'm just thinking in my head here. There's a C that belongs to both. So there's common notes between D minor 7 and C major 7 as well. That's the C note. Okay. Otherwise, all points of difference between each other. However, you can see clearly with your fretboard diagram how each note relates. And so as you go from, let's say, the C major 7 to the D, to the C major 7, and D minor, that is, C. Okay, exactly the same thing as what we were just doing with initially with D minor 7 and G7 arpeggios. And then of course, we're talking about a 2-5-1 chord progression. So we're wanting to connect all three chords together. So once you get used to connecting the pairs of chords, D minor 7, G7, G7, C major 7, C major 7, back to D minor 7, then do the same exercise but connecting all three chords. So for this, I will, let's just do it once through to start. Okay, so you'd have like D, I'll use 8th notes here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to G and C. Okay, and you can really, because arpeggios outline the chords, you can hear, even though they're not being played, you can hear the chord implied. D minor 7 to G7 to C major 7. So again, you can start from anywhere in the arpeggio of D minor, and 2 and 3 and 4 and D, G, and C. 2 bars of C. D minor, G7, C major, 7. D minor, G, C major. Okay, but that's the idea. So you connect the three together, and if you can do that, then you're well on your way to at least knowing those arpeggio shapes and how they relate on the fretboard. And that's fantastic because it makes them that much easier to use and sound good with using in your guitar solos. That is the exercise, that is the training drill to really learn how all the arpeggio shapes relate to each other. You will start to do this it'll become second nature. definitely use the process I took you through of writing them down on the fretboard paper, overlay them on top of each other, because you'll start to dream these things. If you look at them enough, you will. But that's good because they're in your mind then. Now, this is an exercise. We don't do it so that when we use arpeggios, we just play the one rhythm and we fill every possible space with sound. Of course, we then strip it back and shape it how we like to play. And actually, it's easier to do in real life because you're not playing a constant rhythm. The constant rhythm makes it really difficult. It's kind of like training it here so that you can do it there. This is kind of where you need to do it. This is how you're training it to this point. That gap makes, when you use it, easy. Okay? So if you want to train anything well in your guitar playing, and let's say the level you want to get to is here, train it to here. And then this becomes easy when you do it. If you train it only to the level that you need it, every time you execute whatever it is you trained, you're playing on the edge of your ability. There's more pressure on you to do that. It feels hard. It's harder to do. It's more challenging. So, train beyond what you need, just a little bit, and then there's headroom there. There's space. What I mean here now is that when we use these arpeggio shapes to outline our chord progression, we can put pauses in there because we want to have, variety in rhythm. So if I'm outlining D minor 7, G7, C major 7, I might be sort of like leaving space in there. D minor, G, C, back to D, G, C. Okay, so I was putting more rhythm variation there. I was leaving space. It was, it's more interesting than just going like we were. I mean, that's the exercise. So if you're doing a drill, you're training something, it should sound like you are. But when we're then putting feel and rhythm and all that stuff to it, then it sounds more musical. Okay, and you can hear these chords being outlined, even though I'm not playing them, I'm implying them. That's how great arpeggios are. You don't even need the chords to hear the harmony of the progression. Okay, so it's just easier because you're putting space in between your lines that you play. It's not just one consistent, constant line happening. We don't want that. We want to have some space as well. So that space gives us time to kind of think if we need to think of where we're going next and where the next arpeggio is. So again, I'm outlining the chords here. I was playing before and you could hear the harmony because it was being implied by the arpeggio. So again, 1 to the G and the C. D minor, G, to the D minor, G, and the C. So, I'm outlining those chords. I've got my D minor, G, and the C. Okay, so that's the idea. It becomes much easier once you've gone through those training drills and can work and negotiate your way through those changes with a constant rhythm. If you like this video, then you'll love this ebook audio from my Jazz Concepts for Acoustic Guitar series titled Arpeggios. In this ebook, you will learn exactly what arpeggios are, how to visualize them on the fretboard, and several ways to use them in your guitar playing. I will run you through 3 key major arpeggio shapes and 3 key minor arpeggio shapes and how each of these relate to each other on the fretboard so you can easily access them in your playing. Not only will you learn the conventional way of applying arpeggios to your guitar playing, but I will also show you how to instantly multiply your soloing possibilities with each arpeggio shape through arpeggio superimposition. It sounds complicated, but it's super simple. I will not only show you how all this stuff works on the fretboard, but also explain it to you so you can understand the theory behind it all. So click the link in the description below this video and download your free ebook audio, Jazz Concepts for Acoustic Guitar Arpeggios. You'll have it in your inbox within minutes. Let me know in the comments section what acoustic guitar topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. I read every comment and I would love to hear what you have to say. If you like this video, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell button so YouTube can tell you when I've released a new video. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, thanks for watching this video. I appreciate your time and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.